really didn't feel comfortable with. He was being led us. I always find he's very good one-on-one with people.
Thanks, Zach. It's excellent.
Before we start, Mr. Mayor, where's the sound going to be recorded from? So these things.
He just wants to know which way to project.
Yeah, just so that we know.
Cameras to the phone. That one and that one.
Hi, Nick.
Yeah, she's in, yeah.
Oh, I was going to suggest that as well.
Yep.
Before the notices of motion.
I can use.
Thanks. Right, would you please stand? Welcome to this ordinary meeting of Hunters Hill Council, number 4438. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respect to their elders past and present.
We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace, diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, discharge the duties entrusted to us, common good, and in your sight, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. Please have a seat. The apologies that I'm not aware that we have any apologies tonight. I think everybody's here. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? No declaration of interest. Confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. Councillor Miles, Councillor Williams. Are there any comments on that? Any questions? Clarifications? All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. The mayoral minutes. We have a mayoral minute for the Anzac ceremony we've just had. It was a particularly interesting ceremony this year. It was our 95th ceremony and it's been continuously run for 95 years. This year we commemorated women in war, in various aspects of war, and I learned some things that I wasn't aware of. I found some of the presentation by John Misto quite confronting, and it was very disappointing that some of the things haven't been rectified over many years. But so I commend the reading of those documents to you. And for those of you here, I'm sure you feel similar to me that it was really quite confronting. We see what a major contribution women have made. It's interesting now that women now are in all roles, frontline roles, even to the point that women now being part of clearance diving. Clearance diving was regarded as a pretty tough area in the Navy. So women are now part of every part of the military in Australia. So I have a mover, Ross and Councillor Williams, excuse me, and Councillor McLaughlin, thank you. So, yes, if I can just let you know that we are now moving to proceed with our webcasting, and all meetings will be an open session, including all debate addresses by the public, recorded and and the webcast live on the council website for the purpose of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available to the public on the council's website. Recordings may be disclosed under provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act. Members of the public attending a council meeting may have their image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast and archived, or as an observer or other interested parties, members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillor,
Mr Mayor, could I move that items where we have speakers tonight be moved forward in the agenda for the convenience of the speakers? I think it's item 4.5, 5.2.
Before we do that, Mr Mayor, can we deal with the ANZAC? I don't think we can vote.
I'm sorry, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, Mr Mayor. I'd just
I'm
like
sorry,
to
that's-
make a couple of quick comments. I'd like to congratulate yourself, Councillor McLaughlin, and equally importantly the staff, because I found it, as always, a very moving, very informative, and I don't think any other council does it better than Hunters Hill in terms of the moment, the ceremony and the reverence. I think it was very well done, and I'd like to congratulate those that were involved in it.
Thank you. And I'd like to acknowledge the work of Ida Kazoo. Ida put it together. A lot of work with Justin McLaughlin, Councillor McLaughlin. But it was a fantastic, so if we could just acknowledge Ida Kazoo's contribution to it. Yes. Anybody else like to speak to it? Thank you. Councillor Sanson.
Mr Mayor, as I suggested before, I'd like to move that we move items 4.5 up to and 3.2, assuming we've got the speaker ready to speak on those matters forward in the agenda.
Could we bring, would you like to bring them forward in the order in, or could we bring
Whatever order suits you, just
forward
to put
early?
it. 4.5.
First, start with that. All right. Second, Councillor Miles, all in favour? Okay, thank you. So 4.5, Mrs. Kate Amati is here, and she's offered to provide any clarification we might need, but she doesn't particularly want to speak. So if we go straight to 4.5.
I'll move
I'll
the
second the
motion.
recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Miles, secondly Councillor McLaughlin. And that's the proposed removal restriction pursuant to S88B, Conveyancing Act, etc., Lot 3, DP, etc., McBride Avenue, Hunters Hill. Right, is there any move, Councillor Miles, was it? Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Miles?
Only to say that this is just, it seems to be housekeeping and logistics stuff. It doesn't seem to be particularly contentious, so happy to support.
Is there anybody wishing to speak against this? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I was on the council when this issue was debated and decided, and it was a contentious issue at that stage because of the importance of the haven and its relationship as a marine villa to the Wanko River. And I see no reason why that importance should be changed at this stage, or at any stage. I think it was well considered, well thought through, and I believe that the current restrictions or covenant should stay on that site and not be removed. It's important that we maintain the haven and its views, and I don't see any justification for changing the current position.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody like to speak for the motion? Councillor Justin.
Yes, I'll speak for the motion. The pre-concept plan or the concept plans have come through CAP a couple of times, and it did become apparent that in order to accommodate the changes or the concept plans that some variation was needed. And I think the change in the pitch roof, the slate roof, not being able to have that pitch, that all requires, for the concept, which is a very good concept, go forward, that these changes are necessary. So I support the application.
Thank you. Speak against the motion? For the motion? Right reply?
Only to say, I guess, Mr Mayor, that the DA will be subject to further critique by the council and the council staff particularly. So removing the covenant, I think, is probably going to, as Councillor McLaughlin said, lead to probably a bit more leeway in the design of the property, which may end up with a better design outcome. So again, happy to support.
All right, so I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried.
Mr Mayor, can I have my name recorded in my position?
You can. Would you like your name recorded?
Yes, please.
Councillor Williams,
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sanderson. All right, so the next one is item 5.2, and Mr Ian Cox. Would you Mr Cox, would you like to speak to this?
Of course, thank you. And also may I just present these to the councillors as well? I hope I have enough.
I'll pass them on.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And I just would like to confirm with council the full waiver of fees as Hunters Hill Council proudly present and support this year's Ride Hunters Hill Symphony Orchestra's Kiddies concert to be held in the town hall here. The last 2 years have been a wonderful success. This year we're going to have a soloist of David Berry, who is a person who's highly recommended by Michaela Liesk. Michaela's done the last couple of years for this concert, that is about to embark in a career in another country for a little while to see how things go. A wonderful, wonderful proposition. But nevertheless, the concert itself, as you can see by the flyers, a great opportunity for young people to come and see and listen and play, sing, dance with an orchestra and see all the instruments of the orchestra. We do instrument demonstrations, so it's a fun class. It's almost a sandpit in sound, really. So, but it's a very fun-packed hour. There's a tremendous amount of content to make sure that they remain engaged, and it really is for kids from 1 to 92. They bring their grandparents along, they bring their parents along, we play a little bit of repertoire that the parents and grandparents would appreciate, so that we use the classical repertoire and romantic repertoire and the modern repertoire, and even some Baroque music to give them a good idea of all the different composers, how music's evolved, how the instruments work, how their little families are within themselves, and just all in all, just a lot of fun and an opportunity to learn something along the way. And I'm open to questions. Any further support that the council may offer?
Councillors, any questions? Thank you very much, and thank you for the great work you're doing, Chief.
Oh, you're more than welcome. So we'll call that a confirmed that the council will waive the
one small thing that I'm required to do. So, could I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Miles, Councillor Williams. Would anybody like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Oh, do you want to?
No, I'll have right of reply.
I'm speaking in support. So.
No, very happy to support what is a bit of an institution in council's calendar. Waiving the fees for the hall is the least we can do, and thank you for all you do for council entertainment. And the symphony orchestra is very well. For those who haven't gone to the symphony orchestra, is actually brilliant for a local.
Councillor Williams, would you like to?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to echo those thoughts, but I have fond memories of taking my own children to the Opera House to a similar sort of experience, and it was just invaluable introducing them to that level of music and being able to touch the instrument.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do encourage that as well. And we also do not beyond doing the toy symphony either.
So I highly commend it, and I think council is, quite late.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sure there are no objections to this, so I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. So I can now confirm, yes, that's confirmed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you kindly. Thank you.
Love it.
Thanks, everybody.
All the best.
Thank you.
I think, Councillor Sanson, we then move to 3.2, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, so item 3.2 is the traffic Prince Edward Street in Gladesville. I'm sorry, we have Mr. Nicholas Taylor Fick. Would you? Hello, welcome back.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for letting us be here tonight. We are pleased to be here tonight and to support the motion quite those western side of the road to stop the traffic coming off Victoria Road and going in an easterly direction. This is a problem that started quite a few years ago. The traffic was prevented from right adjacent streets like Hillcrest and Sunnyside, and the result of that was to really funnel traffic, the rat runners, down our street, which is very narrow. And was never really designed or built with that in mind. So the rat runners go to Victoria Business Park, other centres as well, the Gladesville Shopping Centre, and all the hundreds of apartments that are built, continue to be built along Pekin Road, etc. So the problem is just going to get worse. A few years ago, we acknowledged just Councillor McLaughlin's help. Meeting up with us and raising this issue, and that resulted in a couple of speed bumps being built. But really, it's thank you for that. But the council at the time said, let's review the situation, and that's what we've done. So, on the councillors involved, we have now put forward our preferred option, not those big there. Make it safe. Really, safety. There's a lot of young families that have moved in. A lot of us got kids, and the street is actually quite unpleasant many times during the day, particularly the rush hour period. People go flying down the road, even fly over one of those speed bumps that was built. So we're very happy to be here and to support the motion. We really do look forward to working with to make the street. So thank you. And if there's any questions, of course, get to. I mean, there are a couple of other things that we'd like to be seen done, but this part road closure will go a long way to making the street safe. So that's a good start. Very good.
Thank you. Just that was any questions, please? Councillor Miles?
You say that there's other things you'd like to see done. Give us some examples.
Well, there's some traffic turns right to Victoria Road. It's cyclone rushing roulette. Most of us do not do that. Absolutely too dangerous. Number of accidents at that intersection. So to really, and even turning right from going north, turn right into our street, that the cars go whooshing past you. It's 70k zone. Very dangerous. A lot of us actually go, if we're going over Gladesville Bridge, going north, we actually go Burns Bay Road, Gladesville Road, and it's a lot safer, nicer, just as quick. So that's what we do. We actually think right-hand placed over there, or some stage it doesn't make sense to have that open, but that's perhaps another time. Look, there could be more a bit of extra signage, but really that's not going to. But the part road closure really is a very, very good start, and we certainly support.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So the item is page 6. Councillor Williams, move Councillor Williams.
Move the recommendation.
Second, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Traffic management sometimes is a iterative process. You try one thing, and if that doesn't work, you work to the bigger picture. I've been down there, spoke to the residents, and it's very clear that something more needs to be done than just the speed bumps. And the most cost-effective and simplest way to resolve the issue is to do as was indicated by Nick and the residents, and that's to have part closure. That's restricting access to only essential services, buses and garbage trucks. And that will give, I believe, immediate relief to those residents in that very narrow street, and as indicated, a lot of young families there that are now being subjected to a lot of traffic flow. I agree that the long-term goal could be to close that median strip. It's the only access point without controlled lights, and people that want to turn right go up to Hull Street, or do as was indicated, go through the overpass and find their way back there. I think it's important that we keep through traffic off our residential streets, and this to me is a reasonable and cost-effective way of achieving that for the residents in a very short time frame.
Thank you. Who would like to speak against them?
I have a question.
Yes.
Through you. Has there been consultation of the residents, all of the residents, the street, at any time? And then I have another. Probably to the reporting officer, Councillor Williams. When you say that this is the preferred option of the residents, how many residents were consulted? All the residents? Or the residents who came to you? Or I'm just curious if all the residents have been consulted before we move on a motion to redesign a street.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Williams.
I'm not suggesting every resident in the street agrees with this, or if I've spoken to, but I believe there is sufficient concern, sufficient articulation of the problem for council to move to this step of designing and providing plans on how it would be done, and then consult the wider residents. If there is people there that doesn't want this to happen, that'll come out in that process, and then we can gauge as to the merits of the issue. But I don't think in any circumstance do you get 100% agreement. It has to be weighed up on balance. At the moment, I believe there's more than sufficient community concern to justify going to this step, and we will go through a consultation process before it is finalised or implemented or taken forward through the approvals process. So I think there's enough safeguard there for people that haven't voiced an opinion to have their say.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody like to speak against the motion?
like to foreshadow an amendment or
Yes, Councillor.
suggest an amendment. I think the order's a little bit about incorrect. So I think that my feeling is that the council should consult with all the residents before we put time, money and effort into designing a road closure, and then consulting with residents. We know from experience on speak to it. Can I speak to it? We know from Bonifan Road, and in fact it was Councillor Williams who spoke
I'm
strongly
happy
about
to
it.
second the amendment so that Councillor Crassoy can
Right.
speak to the
So we're
amendment.
moving it as an amendment, not a...
Yeah, do you want it as an amendment?
Can I?
I think that's what you said,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
We know from Bonifan Road that residents must be consulted at every stage and from the beginning. And I'm sure you would all agree that all your neighbours need to have a say in what's happening. I'm sure you'd all agree that it will be a big waste of time if we design something and then go to consultation and then hear about objections to it. We know this from experience. I'm suggesting that just changing the order of how we do it, that we consult with the residents that we're considering this and we'd like their input perhaps in the design process, and based on that, the results of that consultation, we then go to the design. Same, other than that, everything else is the same, just that number 2 become number 1. That there be prior consultation before we put a design in people's letterboxes that they've not heard anything about.
Would it also include streets around that street?
Are we now talking about my wording of the amendment or my thoughts on that?
Your thoughts?
Okay.
Your thoughts. Does it only include
As-
that street
look,
or streets that are affected by it?
As a resident previously of Richmond Crescent, I know that I use that street sometimes, and as a local resident, perhaps others might have some input into it. So everyone would have to agree it's being used as a rat run, and there has to be a solution. And half closing the road is probably it. But what people don't like is being told what they're getting when they live on that street and they haven't had an opportunity to see it. They'll probably get it, see it, and go, this is a good idea, I'm glad council's doing it, yes, but you must involve the community in consultation.
Well, just one moment. Councillor Cressy, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's all,
All
thank
right.
you.
So look, I'd like to be sure that we understand your amendment. I'll ask gentlemen to try to clarify, and if it's not correct, you please interrupt.
Amendment would be that council consult with residents on proposed partial road closure of section street and for each down track road. Passes shall be structured emergency vehicles. So following consultation, council design and cost estimate.
Do you accept that?
For the proposal, agreement is reached with the proposal, with residents on the proposal, process the
Point of
Right.
clarification, if I could, Mayor, through you to General Manager. At the moment, it reads that you will consult with residents and then design and provide plans. What if the residents comes back with
following the consultation, we then do the residents came back
That's right.
and said, okay, we're happy with that proposal. Well, that's what we did the design on. They came back and said, well, we're not happy with that proposal, but here's another proposal that we are happy with. Then we would go back
All right.
and we'd come.
So, just one moment. So, I'll ask General Manager to read it again. Be quite sure this is what you want, what you're suggesting.
One would be the council consult with residents on the proposed park closure at the intersection of Prince Edward Street and Manning Road, eastbound traffic, Victoria Road, except for school, garbage trucks and emergency vehicles. Following the consultation, council design, provide plan, cost estimates for an agreed proposal. That 3 would be.
Councillor Craswell, is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin, do you accept that as a...
Yes.
Councillor Miles?
My only concern with that is that there's no time limit based on that, and this is a long-running issue and one that I think that the residents are keen to get cracking on. Can we get some indication, or can we put a date into the motion? I'm asking
I
you,
agree.
Councillor,
Thank you.
that we
It's a
need
good
to put so that there is a commitment here that we actually are going to do something by a certain date. 'Cause I
Thank
think
you.
that we
It's a
want
good
it
idea.
done.
Yeah.
All right, just one more question to Johnny. What's a reasonable time to do that?
Well, we would be required to advertise for at least 28 days. We will need, without going to fully drawing up plans or whatever, we need to allow to ensure people actually understand it. I would think a little diagram before we don't have somebody talking about, get the comments in, process them, come back to council. So
28, 14.
14. June, back in July. Second, the 9th. So we'll try and come back not the 9th of July.
That's the
So if you said to an ordinary meeting in July,
Could I just ask one more question before
Yes.
we agree to that? And this is a safety question. There is no way to trial this first, is by putting concrete barriers there, half closing the road to trial it. Like it's just, that won't work first, will it? As part of this process.
I'm not a traffic engineer
Yeah.
or an engineer, so
I just
Shouldn't
wondered what,
comment. I
while
mean-
that consultation process was going on, if you could be trialling that.
I would have
People
thought.
understand the
Well, I would have
impact it
thought
will
that
have.
that's potentially an outcome of this process. It may well be that before you make it final, you trial it because, and that's why I put the cost estimates in. So for argument's sake, if it's going to cost, and I have no idea what it's going to cost, but let's just say it's going to cost $1,000. The council might say, look, before we spend the 40, there's a bit of toing and froing about whether it's the best solution or not, so let's try it.
So, for example, up at Harris Farm, Ride Council had put,
Yeah.
at the end of that street there,
Yeah.
they'd put the concrete
Yeah.
things in.
Yeah. So we could do something like that if that's what we thought. So I think that's an outcome of this process.
I know it seems like a slightly longer wait, but I think it's worth doing and getting it right.
Well, still once.
Your motion's amended to say either the 9th or the 23rd of July, but a meeting in July. Is that correct? Councillor
I can't see
McLaughlin?
how you can do the
Sorry.
consultation
Yes, I
process.
agree.
No, no.
Agree with that? Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Would somebody like to speak? If you'd like to speak for the motion, I think you've pretty much done it. Would anybody like to speak against the motion?
You haven't asked whether or not the mover original motion.
Well, this is an amendment to the motion, so the mover of the original motion, would you accept that amendment to your original motion?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. So we're back to where we were. Does anybody like to speak against the motion?
That's the amendment.
The amendment we have on the table. Thank you. Councillor Sanderson.
I will speak against the amendment to the extent that I'm concerned about the additional time it might take. So could we also get an estimate of how long it will take if we do simple route? Council proposed, and I seconded it earlier. Is the consultation process going to be as long that way?
Has to be 28 days.
Thank you. Well, can we get an answer as to how much have much additional time.
Well, to do the design, everything, do that up front, we'll need to get someone to do that for us. Traffic engineer, roads. 2 weeks to that. Have to tell us how long it's going to take us. Take it, so we might have that in a month. Then once we do that, we can start consultation process.
When do we
So that would probably
same time
be,
frame?
No, that would be, because I'm only thinking about doing a quick 30 little diagram to do it that way. If you go the way that you're talking about doing and progressing it off that, we need a lot more detail. You've got to remember, of course, because you're talking about Victoria Road, the RMS is the consent authority.
So
We're not talking about.
So do you have any other questions? Or do you want to speak against them?
Well, I mean, I'll speak against it, the extent that if it's going to take any further time to implement a solution, I would have thought placing a no left-hand turn sign on that intersection would be done fairly promptly. So the only thing that's slow us down.
So 28 days of mandatory.
28 days.
And we have to consult with the RMS.
Well, I mean, my concern is that, I mean, this process, I mean, when it came up, it was 2014 when I was a community member of the Public Transport and Traffic Committee. I think Councillor McLaughlin brought that problem to the committee in about 2013. It was 2000, I think the committee dealt with it quite promptly in 2014. We were still waiting for it to be installed late 2014. There should have been a review. That hasn't occurred. It's been up to the residents and matter back to council. I don't want to see anything that's going to delay the process. I think what Councillor Williams and I proposed is quite a simple solution. The longest part of it seems to be. I don't object to the other process, provided it's not going to add more than say a fortnight or so onto the actual implementation of a solution. Also, I don't believe that RMS would need to be consulted in this. I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. But all we're talking about is no left-hand sign into a local street. We're not talking about even any alteration to Manning Road, really. Only Bigwood Street.
Right. Who would like to speak for the amendment? Would you like to speak against the amendment?
Yes,
Councillor
Mr.
Williams.
Mayor. I appreciate what Councillor Crassoy is talking about, and my motion in its current form does exactly that, as far as I'm concerned. You have to have something put on the table for people to discuss. There's been enough concern about this issue over many years. Solutions have been tried. This is the next iteration in the thought process of trying to resolve what is a dangerous situation. Doing a design, whether it's a thumbnail sketch or a complete road engineer's design, I don't particularly mind. If it is just a schematic, that to me is a design. So people need something on the table to be able to talk about, to see how it's going to be implemented. I don't see this as being a complicated issue. It is basically signage and maybe a bit of a narrowing of the street. Let's get on with it. As far as I'm concerned, let's find out what the rest of the residents in the street think about it, and the best way to do that is to have a design to put on the table to discuss. So I'm quite comfortable with the way the motion is framed at the moment, and don't see the necessity of complicating the process as proposed in the...
Would you like to speak for the motion?
Point of clarification.
For the amendment, my apologies. Yes, Councillor Crassoy.
Through you to the GM. Can I just clarify, as it stands, this would take longer to get to the end result? The amended suggestion of getting the public consultation done swiftly and then doing a design based on the consultation of all the residents of the street would take less time?
I believe that the amendment would take less, particularly if the residents didn't agree with the proposal, because then we know.
Yeah. I would say going
And we're
back
not-
and forth.
But I take Councillor Williams' point. There's a difference between just a quick schematic and a fully blown engineering drawing. Which
Sorry, my misunderstanding. I read design and provide plans for as more substantial. But thank you for the clarification.
Right, would you write a reply, Councillor Cresswell? Right, I'll put the motion, the amendment, I'll put the amendment. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. So the amendment now becomes the motion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to.
Sorry,
I'd like to speak to the motion. Yeah.
Okay, you'd like to
If
speak to
possible, yes.
the amendment.
To the now motion.
All right.
I think it's a good initiative, and I thank Councillor Williams. The only concern I have is that we have passed a motion not 2 months ago dealing with what is going to be the potential for increased development on the corridor towards the GSV side. In so doing, we asked for a fairly comprehensive traffic study to be done. I would almost argue that down to Prince Edward is within the zone that would be affected by the potential for development in that area. I'm not saying that I want to delay this, I want to get this done as quickly as possible. But I would suggest that closing this rat run now also has to carry with it monitoring of where those vehicles then end up. Whether they're going into the adjacent streets, whether they're going down Manning Road, and I understand the issues there because I do travel quite often. I think I only tried to turn right onto Victoria Road up there once because it was a disaster. I prefer to go down to Pittwater Road, then turn right onto Victoria Road because it's a much safer option. So I understand the issues around that intersection, and I think that the lights are even in a bad place on Victoria Road. But I'm not sure if it's worth adding, but I'd like to make the staff aware of it. When we do the master plan for Gladesville and when we are assessing what the flow-on effects of traffic would be of the development, but of changes like this to the local roads, I think that this is in the area of interest, and I think that we have to have a closer look at how traffic is flowing off of the arterial roads through the municipality, particularly in that zone, because that's the hotbed of where most of the traffic flows are going. And it's a motion of council. I think that we just need to be aware. I don't want to amend the motion again, but I think we need to be aware that as part of that master planning, we should be stretching the outlook down to Prince Edward and Manning Road.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion that we need? Councillor, the General Manager, please help us. Help inform us.
Yes, I think the point that Councillor Miles is making really goes back to something that Prasso talked about, a trial. That might be, for instance, where you might do a trial to see what the flow impacts, potential flow impacts might be as a decision, because it's pretty hard to predict. I think what the residents will tell you is that, to me, one of the biggest impacts all on Victoria Road and all those streets is the fact that they've become commuter car parks. It's a huge issue.
All right.
So we will take that on. We will take that on.
All right. Is there any further discussion required on this? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I'd like to see this motion passed quickly and get on with the job. And I would have preferred it to be done expeditiously, but we can go down this path that's currently on the table. I share Councillor Miles' view that this will be impacted by the GSV or that whole Gladesville precinct, because it is now the only right-hand turn opportunity before Cal Street. And logic would tell you people will use this once we get a much bigger and all-encompassing developments on this Gladesville shopping precinct. So I think it's prudent to do this quickly as possible to give relief to these residents. The issue of whether it spills over or not, the intent of people here is to go up through to Pittwater Road. They don't really have any other alternative. They'll stay on Quarry Road to go up to Pittwater itself. So I don't see it as being an overflow issue, but I agree we need to make sure that the people are consulted, and let's find a quick and speedy resolution issue for the resident.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. We can now so we go back to we'll just go back to our order of meeting to item 3.1, and that is the proposal to formally withdraw an MOU to form a joint regional authority. Councillor Williams, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to formally move it. I know the General Manager sent out an email to councillors saying that this is unnecessary. I disagree. I think in any contractual arrangement or any formal arrangement, there needs to be conclusion. And yes, if the MOU is not proceeded with, then it falls over. However, I think as symbolism and also courtesy, make sure that there's no misunderstanding as to what Council's intent is in relation to JRA. It was a concept put forward during the merger process. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't really materially matter. But the issue is that we did sign an agreement, a memorandum of understanding, and I think Council needs to let its intent be made clear and the matter to be finalised. And to me, that is easily and simply done by Council putting on the record that it is withdrawing from that concept, and that it writes to, as a matter of courtesy to surrounding councils, to let them know that who knows what's ahead of us. Mergers may or may not come back on the table in future, and we'll design a response to it accordingly. I think it's time now that we put JRA and the previous merger process aside and make sure that everybody's clear on what.
Seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Anybody would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Miles?
Question. I'm not necessarily speaking against the motion. As Councillor Williams said, it may be just a gesture at this point. There is no, just a question through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. Even if it is a gesture, it passes this motion, there's no JRA to pull out of, but it doesn't affect anything, does it? It could be a gesture, which would be nice, closing another loophole, whatever, but it's not going to practically affect anything.
Anybody like to speak against the motion? Are you asking a question? Anybody else speak against the motion?
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So would this just, what would happen if we don't withdraw? Will it just, does it, I mean...
Well, it effectively doesn't exist because it was only to proceed if the minister consented. The minister never consented. So it was just a proposal. Councillor Williams is right. It was a proposal put forward at the time.
It doesn't exist, so it
didn't proceed.
How would we withdraw from it? No. Just it's a token. Is that right?
It's just a. Yes, sir.
So, anybody else like to speak for the motion? Councillor Sanderson?
Yeah, I just briefly clarify that there is still in regional South Wales. It wouldn't be difficult for government to reinvigorate them if they so chose. There is a to clarify for Councillor Collins, there is a memorandum of understanding that exists. That's what it is. That's the full intent. Just tidy things up, get things off the table. Councillor Williams says time to face with the situation again. We'll come up with an appropriate response. In any case, if you look back to the original intent of the JRA, it wasn't intended to solely provide something that would have been far more difficult for the government. I'm certainly supporting the motion.
Right, anybody else against? Are there any quick questions?
One question,
Yeah,
sorry
Paul.
not to dwell on it, but is there anything else that this body can be used for? Any other sort of partnerships or anything like that that this JRA might be effective for?
Exist.
If it were, it doesn't exist.
Memorandum.
No, I think what would happen likely, at the moment, the JO legislation doesn't apply to council. If it was to apply, this agreement doesn't meet the requirement of current JO legislation. We'd have to do one. There's really nothing it can be used for. Look, if you want to tidy it up one way, it's up to you.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? I have a question. Is it per se the JRA you're concerned about, Councillor Williams, or is it the fact that this is a process that needs to be tidied up?
The latter, Mr. Mayor. I think if you entered into an agreement as an memorandum of understanding, and you no longer wish to pursue it, then I think it's courtesy to let people know. I believe, and have always believed, that the NESROC concept is a much more inclusive, much better way of providing that collaboration and partnership with councils than having a very formalised and structured legal entity such as a JRA. And as Councillor Sanderson has mentioned, JRAs are not off the table. They're currently only operational in rural New South Wales. There's no reason why the current or subsequent governments couldn't require that to be spread across all councils. So this is a new council. The previous council did this based on the information and process they were going through. I think it just needs to be resolved that this council not going to proceed down that path without further consideration. And I think it's just courtesy to those surrounding councils that we entered into the memorandum of understanding with to formally let them know that we're not proceed with it. And the NESROC process to me works fine. Current arrangements.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. If there's no further questions, can I put the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. I think we move to 3.3, is that correct? So item 3.3, low-rise medium-density housing code. This is proposed by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Williams. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's interesting. I noticed today that there's a notice on the Department of Planning's website which says low-rise medium-density housing as complying development is only allowed where medium-density development is already permitted. Local environmental plan. Our local environmental plan does provide protection, but that is quite a misleading. I tried to dig into it myself in the time available. I couldn't make head nor tail, but I think everyone's going to have that problem. It's clearly a problem to some of our neighbouring councils in Lane Cove and Ryde, and I think it would be a strong gesture of support, regardless of how much it may or may not impact on Hunters Hill. I'm sure it will have some effect. We are largely protected by the fact that 3/4 of our municipality is a heritage conservation area, which will provide us that protection. The remaining part, who knows what the result will be, and I don't intend to explore that. But whatever happens, I think it's important, as well as supporting our neighbouring councils, we also do something to protect those that may come under the influence of this code. This is why I propose, or put forward this motion, to again write to the our local member, the Honourable Anthony Roberts, who is also the Minister for Planning responsible for this. And I mean, it also is also somewhat surprising that you know, the direction that planning law has taken in recent times. At the time of the draft legislation, former Minister for Planning, the Honourable Dr. Rob Stokes, had put forward, there was talk at that point in time lessening the impact of complying development. That is just seems to have been jettisoned by this current government. So we've lost the positive reform. Now we come in with this negative reform that removes these powers from council. I think it's very important that we, or that removes considerable powers from council, in as much as we will have this, a lot of planning decisions handed over to developers. And I mean, I personally find that, you know, quite insulting when you look at you know, the fact that we were told at the time that they removed our input into planning decisions in council, that this was going to be a measure to correct corruption. Now we find we're taking further powers away from councillors, or not councillors this time, but from council staff and even our own bodies that we've set up to make decisions. And now we're going to be handing them over to certifiers. Now, if you bother to look at some of the data that's available on the Building Professionals Board website about the number of matters that they are dealing with misconduct of certifiers, I find it rather disturbing that anyone would think that we've had planning powers removed from us to try to avoid corruption, and now they're handing it over to another body which I don't think has the strongest reputation. So that's part of the reason for the motion. I guess I'll leave that for debate among councillors at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody like to speak against the motion? Sorry, Councillor Miles, but you've been
Tested.
Beaten to the
You've been
Again.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, my understanding is that this will actually only apply to a very small section, Hunters Hill, and I do believe that we're due to get some more information about exactly what, exactly how this new code is going to impact us. I would like to, I don't know if it's possible to defer this until the next meeting to have more information. Yeah, I'd actually, I think it's a waste of time trying to become exempt from the legislation. We are not, that is the legislation. The best way we can deal with this is to manage it, make sure our LEP is able to deal with it, and just figure out how much it impacts us. Of the areas that this will apply to, ones I'm thinking are mostly developed anyway. So yeah, I'd like to defer to the next information. If that's a possible.
So your proposal is that we defer it, seconded Councillor Miles. Right.
Process.
Would you like to speak to that amendment?
No, I think that's fairly straightforward. I think we.
What about speaking?
I'm speaking. I'll speak forward.
by
I'll concede.
You speak against it if you wish. Please go ahead, Councillor.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Sanderson that this is yet further erosion of Hunters Hill's ability to control development. And as we can see, all over Sydney, development is out of control at the moment. I don't accept the premise that because this is only affecting a small number of residents in Hunters Hill, and I believe every area in Hunters Hill is important, not just the conservation area. And if we're going to just say, well, those residents don't matter, that's certainly not what I'm here at the council about. I think there are issues that will impact on Hunters Hill in relation to this. They are a little bit different to what is happening in Ryan. They are a little bit different to what's happening in Lane Cove because our LEP is structured differently to those two councils and does afford better protection. But there are parts of Hunters Hill that are impacted by this. And I believe council needs to clarify and seek action in relation to this. Because at the moment, the residents of Hunters Hill are seeing issues happening and discussions happening in Ryan. Talking to the Mayor of Lane Cove, they're also very concerned about the issue and the way it's impacting them. They're discussing and moving forward in their community on this issue. Hunters Hill is saying, no, we're not going to discuss it if we go down the amendment path. People expect us to be informing them of what the issues are. To me, this motion puts the issue on the table, seeks to get the government's clarification and structure it in a way that we're seen to be moving forward, not putting it off to another meeting. So as I say, I see Hunters Hill as a whole. I respect community as a whole. There will be parts of Hunters Hill affected by this, and this council has an obligation to speak up on those people's behalf. Other councils around us are doing that, and I think this is appropriate action, as the original motion says, to start that engagement process to explore exactly what we can do and what the issues are. I share the concern about handing matters over to private certifiers yet again. There's a lot to be said about that process, and I think the TWT had an interesting article about the private certification process in the last edition and all its faults. And to expand that into complying development around medium density, to me, I think is not a productive step and certainly will cause problems within our localities. So I don't think we need to delay this. I think we owe our community to be speaking up and to be structuring a path forward, which this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'd like to be clear that I understand what the motion is, if you don't mind. So your motion is to defer the matter until we gather additional information. Is that correct?
Correct.
So could you read what we've got?
Well, the amendment proposed by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Miles, is that this motion is deferred until the next ordinary meeting of council when further information is available.
But just to be clear, so we'd like to speak for Councillor Miles.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I don't think it's an issue that it's not going to affect 80%, and we heard in the briefing, we do have a obligation, as you say, to look after everyone. What I heard in our briefing is that our instrument, the strength of our instrument in Hunters Hill has meant that some of the problems that are being faced by Ryde, being faced by Lane Cove, and I assume being faced by Drummoyne and Canada Bay, they're issues, and they're issues for us, and we have to be cognizant of them. But because we have always focused on appropriate development in Hunters Hill, the Manor House issue we'll set aside because there's not many areas where manor houses can be constructed. The private certification, it might be an issue, but this report doesn't provide me the information that I need to make a call on that. There has been problems with the private certification of dwellings. That's clear. But but I'd like to get the information before making a judgment call on our course of action. This seems to be a reaction to the issues being faced, particularly in Ryde, that are being politicised by many factors in Ryde. But I think that cooler heads prevail in Hunters Hill, and we will be able to look at the information at hand once the officers are able to provide a report to us outlining exactly what it is that affects the LEP, what areas of Hunters Hill it will affect, and what our response should be. Once we have that, then we can make a judgment call on the best course of action. But until then, I'm not going to go off the information that's provided in this report, which says that we have to go down this course of action when we haven't really had a proper briefing on the new medium density housing code, the dual occupancy, the private certification, and some statistics around particularly private certification in Hunters Hill. I think we all hear that these are issues, but I'd like to get information on it before we make a call one way or another. It just seems a sensible course of action to me.
Thank you. Speak against. Paul? Any questions, any clarifications?
We're debating the motion that we, the alternative, the amendment.
Yes, sorry, I will speak for the alternative. There are aspects of this motion that I think we can probably work on straight away, and that is meeting with ministers, discuss our options under this new legislation. So there are parts of this motion that I do could happen here and now. But I do agree also that we need to wait and get some further full information from council officers on exactly where this is going. We need the full scenario, and I'm assuming that's going to come to the next council meeting in 2 weeks' time. In that case, I would prefer to wait and get a full assessment of how this is going to impact us, and it may be that parts of this motion will be incorporated into whatever we decide at that point. There are some parts of this motion that I can't support, and that is, I'm not sure whether we should be flagging legal action and those kinds of things at this point. We need a full assessment before we can start to contemplate those kinds of actions.
Anybody would like to speak against the amendment? For the amendment?
I'm going to speak for it as well, because I think it's right. I commend a lot of work. I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. In the motion, we want to run the Cowboys out of town. We're going to run them out of town. Just need to our ball plan a little better strategised. We just need that bit more information. I wholeheartedly think that we don't want this actually anywhere in and I think we could fight it because it matters everywhere. It matters to all of us, not just to a small section of Hunters Hill. All those residents in that section, it matters to the whole suburb that we don't have Cowboys making decisions. We're going to fight it well, and so I think it's worth doing. Not until July.
Against the amendment? Anybody like to speak against the amendment? Any questions? If we're all done, I'll put the amendment. Those in favour? Against? It's carried. Councillor Williams, record his name and Councillor Sanderson. All right, so the amendment becomes a motion. Anybody like to speak to the motion? Against the motion? Are there any clarifications? Can I put the motion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? All in favour. Thank you very much. The next item, I think we're at 3.4, am I correct? Yes. 3.4, it's the Hunters Hill Library Services. Is that moved Councillor Sanderson, seconded Councillor Williams? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I must clarify that this motion is in no way about reducing library services in this municipality. What it's about is ensuring that we have all the information on the table so that we can make the best choices. We also need to engage in public community consultation to ensure that we get things right. This is an extremely complex issue, as I think has been highlighted by all of the tours of libraries that we've undertaken in recent weeks, and by further investigation by Councillor Williams and also by the Libraries Committee. This is really important to get this issue right. I just wouldn't feel comfortable if we end up on the last meeting before the 30th of June, or 30th of June, which I believe is the 25th, having to make a decision on a single report. I'd like to get as much on the table as soon as possible. That's why I've asked that that the questions in part one of this motion be answered. I also would like to know things like the what obligations there are on us to have a library service. What are the what subsidies are available from government and so on. And also, the thing going forward is that in negotiating a new agreement with RIDE, assuming we do this, it's important that the new agreement provides us with information about what we're getting for that service. For this reason, I did a slight. I apologise. Actually, I had flagged the motion. I have basically so far. I have spoken to the earlier part, but the motion we would like to put is in fact this one, which I had shown some council a bit earlier. I apologise if I'm not. And but the reason we developed it a bit further was the important thing.
I'm sorry. So could I just check? Is it the item 6?
Item 6, the one that appears in red, is the correct one.
So is it just item A and 6? Because
no, there's A. Then unfortunately, what happened when I printed this out, I printed both motions. So ignore the back of the first page.
Right, so the back of the first page is not part of it.
No. So what would happen is that 6A continues on to the page, which is indicates that.
Okay, I understand that.
Yep.
Thank you.
My apologies for presenting it that way. Anyway, what we go on to say in 6 is that we seek an extension in time for Huntsville Council to advise the City of Ryde of whether it will renew the Joint Library Service Agreement beyond June 2019, which is what I understand we're currently committed to. And it would seem to me that leaving that till the 30th of September would be reasonable. And the other thing I'd like to get is that in future, if we're spending $700,000 on a library service, it's incredibly important that we understand what it is we are buying. I got the impression when this matter was discussed, I think it was last Monday night, that some of the questions that I've asked in Part A in Point 1 will not be able to be answered. And it's important, if we're spending this sort of money, that we have to be able to monitor what it is we're actually getting for that money. So I'd like to be able to get information about how our residents are using whatever library service we provide, and that is part of a measure of our success in providing that library service. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Miles.
I might just get some clarification from Councillor Sanderson. Reading the amendments that were made in this amended motion, what's the purpose of that? I don't read that as being largely different than what's in the business paper anyway. What's the point of splitting that into two?
Councillor Sanderson.
Look, it is different in the the motion in the business paper, we didn't ask for an extension. So we risked if we delayed beyond that time, but depending on how the agreement is worded, I don't know, I haven't seen it, but we could automatically lock ourselves in or lock ourselves out, which I didn't want to occur. I think it's important that we speak to the City of Ryde about getting an extension, about making that decision, to give us the time to do both consultation and, finalise our understanding about this matter.
Could I just, sorry, did you have further questions? Could I just check, so on point A,
6A.
6A, yes, thanks. Services agreement beyond June 2019 until September 2018.
He means 2000.
Is that correct?
No. If you look at the punctuation, seek an extension of time for Huntsville Council to advise the City of Ryde Council whether it will renew the joint library service agreement beyond 2019. I suppose we could probably put an extra comma early on in A, and that would clarify it.
I think we're on 7, is that right, the 2020?
No.
So 2018 to 2019.
We're currently committed to...
So that's what you mean.
That's what you mean, 2018 to 2019, not 2019 to...
No, he's saying we're currently committed to 2019.
Hang on just a
And we
moment.
just want to be committed to
Could
September
I,
28.
councillors, could I remind you, we need to have one meeting. Can I remind you that it's being recorded tonight? Extreme. So, Councillor Sanderson, you answer the query.
Well, as I said, I think we could probably clarify it if I can sit down and determine where to put another comma in point A. But what we're doing is seeking an extension of time for making that decision until 30th of June 2018 about the because at that point in time we need to advise the City of Ryde Council whether it will whether we will renew the joint library services agreement. And the agreement would be to extend it beyond 2019. The reason I've separated it out into B is that I think we should continue with yearly renewal rather than going with 5-year renewal that we once had.
Okay, so just so that I think I'm clear, you want to have until the 30th of December this year decide whether we pursue it beyond 2009.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Is that everyone clear on that? I think it's just the way I read it, so thank you. All right, so anything further you'd like to say about this, Councillor Sanderson? Anybody like to speak against the motion? Anybody for the motion? Clarification?
I wanted, if I can just, no, not clarification, for a little bit of extra information. If it's okay with you, maybe if we're talking about Gladesville Library, can we get a financial report of the actual operating of that library? So we can understand what cost of running it. And
if you want to add further questions,
if you're happy with
I'll be
it,
perfectly happy for additional questions to be added.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. Well, then an amendment to get basically a financial report of that library.
Financial report.
Yeah.
Okay. So Councillor Sanderson, are you happy to add that into the motion that we receive financial information or a financial report?
Well, we have covered it to some extent in point 2. Perhaps
If you think it covers it, then...
Well, if you want to clarify that in point 2, that's fine. If you can find a form of words to add to point 2.
Do you think it covers it? Question for the General Manager?
No, it doesn't, but it can go into point.
I think it would be, I agree with Customer, like the report provide information about the cost of at Gladesville. I think that's all you need to do.
Okay.
Councillor Sanderson, are you happy with that? Cost at Cladesville.
Cladesville branch.
The only thing is that if you put that in early, that's confusing it, because that point, I had heard some figures. haven't got them recorded, but there are figures of a cost per head.
Yeah, I suggest you actually need it there, because if you just look at the cost per head compared to other councils, our cost per head is extremely low.
I know.
Right, but it deflects from the fact that what it's cost, 700,000 that it's costing us. And people want to argue, I'm not. Some would like to argue that because we're paying such a low cost per head, then we should pay whatever the contribution is. So I think from a councillor's decision-making perspective, you probably ought to have that overall cost up front.
Right, so could you clarify the suggested amendment?
So the report provides information about the cost of the library at Gladesville branch and cost per head of population of providing library services and compared to other surrounding councils.
Councillor Sanderson, you happy with that? Right, anybody like to speak against? Anybody for? Councillor Williams?
Councillor.
Councillor Miles, you were quicker on the draw.
Yes, I'll take it. We congratulate Councillor Sanderson on this. It's important, I think, up front to note, or for council to express that we're not intending to cut library services in our future planning for the Gladesville Library, and I think that that's something that Councillor Sanderson's quite conscious of, and I think that we all have to be quite conscious of, is that what we're doing is reviewing whether or not the expenditure on this library, which is one of the largest expenditures, is something that's being utilised well for the community. And I think that this motion goes a long way to answering that question, because if we can get some data, which we don't currently have and is not being produced, about the patronage of the library, which I think is an older style of library, and there are opportunities, and I think some of the councillors were lucky enough to attend some regional libraries. There are opportunities there for Hunters Hill to build a cracker library in the new Gladesville precinct. That builds into, again, that master planning for Gladesville, which I spoke to earlier, but is critically important for so many different things. Having a library that is accessible even to the school, the community, that provides car parking spaces, all those current functions that it does now, but also to extend that into ways and means of delivering information that are new, is something we need to explore. And I think that the first step in the process is what this motion goes to. Let's get the data and assess on the budget that we're spending, the merit of doing that. I think it was said during the election period that the money that we provide to this library service, we could actually buy a Kindle for every resident in Hunters Hill. So is that an appropriate use of the expenditure? It may be, but let's get the information first. And I think that there's some opportunities here to, particularly with all of the rumblings around Gladesville, to come up with a really good solution that provides a better outcome in terms of the library service we provide.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody like to speak against? Or Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to echo the comments of several councillors that have spoken this evening. This is not about stopping a library service. This is about, in my mind, having the facts we need to make a decision. It's regrettable that we're now 5-6 weeks off having to make the decision without the relevant information to consider. And I think that this motion starts the process for us to be able to gather the necessary information to make a judgment on how we're spending our money and the value the community's getting for that money. And from the inspections we've done so far of Canada Bay and the broader Ryde Library Service, the term library is no longer just the traditional books. Library services provide a range of opportunities for community to have learning spaces, to engage with each other, and also to where necessary, gather reading literature. But it's gone a long way from a traditional library concept, and I think we need to get our collective minds around what does best suit the future of Hunters Hill and its library services, how best to provide that, and is what we're currently doing the right approach. And I don't have the information before me to make that decision. The deadline is coming up very quick that we're expected to make the decision, and I do support Councillor Sanderson's view that maybe we should seek an extension on make that decision. But in any case, we're not changing the library services today. We're not withdrawing from library services. What we're doing is trying to add value to what the committee gets out of its broader library context. And I would think, after talking to the Mayor at the art show opening of Lane Cove, that might be useful for us to inspect the Lane Cove Library as well. Because they're members of some Shore Link or whatever, which I don't think Ryde or Canada Bay are, and that provides another dimension to accessing books and information that maybe we might like to consider as well. So this is all about finding out the necessary information to make a considered correct decision.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't think there's anybody who wants to speak against this, am I correct? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Item 4.1, swimming pool exemption.
Motion.
Moved Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Sanderson.
I think before the motion's put, it needs an amendment. I think it's not particularly well drafted, and I think it probably.
Well, I think it was moved. Is there? Maybe we could do it as a question. But I think it's been moved, hasn't it?
Yes.
Moved Councillor Miles, seconded. Is there a seconder? No seconders. All right. Councillor.
Question.
I'd like to see it.
Question from Councillor Sanderson. Probably the way
Question.
I'd like to see it between.
Is there a seconder? No.
Well,
So Councillor Sanderson, please go ahead.
To put the motion on the table.
okay,
I
I'll
have to
second
agree
it.
to it.
Okay, I don't agree with it, but I'll second it.
To get it discussed.
That's
Okay,
right.
let's talk.
Councillors, but Councillor Sanderson, you have a question, and would you mind if Councillor Sanderson asked you a question?
Not at all.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think the tidiest way of dealing with this, because I think the recommendation as it stands is completely unacceptable. I think the first thing to do is the tidiest way of doing it is to amend the motion so at least we've got something tidy to vote for, and then we decide whether we've got to vote for it or vote it down. So therefore I propose that the motion be amended as worded there. I'm extremely concerned about the
Do you have another one already?
So just to clarify, Councillor Sanderson, you're not. It is a drafting issue you have.
It is. My great concern is that we are if we were to grant an exemption, the exemption is way too broad, because the reading of the motion as it reads, we're granting an exemption without limiting the scope of that exemption. And it's only conditional upon them doing some initial work to tidy up some of the initial problems. If a later problem occurs later on, we've granted the exemption. If an accident were to occur, we may find ourselves in trouble. So I think the original recommendation is poorly put. So if we're going to put the motion at all, I believe that's the form it should be put in.
Councillor Sanderson, let me make this easy for you and just accept your amendment.
All right.
Can I raise another amendment?
Yeah, my apologies. One other thing that should have gone in there that I forgot is that we should, that as it was also put, it refers to attachments, but I think it should actually list what is in the attachments. Now, I can't do that because I couldn't physically go over that drawing and list all of those attachments. So it really needs to list the individual measures that we've been going
subject to standard conditions, subject to clarification on it.
Yeah, sure. We've got a question from the General Manager.
Well, it's not clear to me. What is attachment?
Well, there are currently diagrams.
Proposed
with,
changes.
Sticker notes on it. Used to be
So
specified.
that's this page 20.
And I'd like to raise a question in relation to those sticker notes, if I may.
Just one minute.
Some of them aren't quite in the right spot.
Well, it needs to be listed as it's over 2 diagrams.
Mr. Grievous, can you help us with this, mate?
Sure. So look at page 14, highlights the 3 items that need to be, works that need to be completed to bring to a standard, and the attachment at the back shows clearly what needs to be done for diagrammatical purposes. So basically, raising the side boundary fencing and how it's done at 1.8, but there's all certain elements that need to be deleted to ensure that people don't step over or step up and over. So that's all it is. It's on highlights on page 14.
So just to clarify where we are at the moment. Move Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Collins. You suggested an amendment. Councillor Miles has incorporated the amendment which we have on this sheet of paper. So, and I think Councillor Williams, you had a question too.
No, I had a
Yeah, well, my question was referred to by Councillor Sanderson. I find attachment 4 very difficult to read, and I think to complete the motion, those elements that are spread across 3 pages, diagrammatical form, need to be dot point form, so we know exactly what those are relating to.
So how would we resolve that this evening, Councillor Williams?
I don't think we can, because unless Mr. Griffiths, through you, can detail those dot points. I don't know which of the points that are in these post-it notes on the 3 diagrams are to be incorporated.
And add, like I said, you can add page 14 items 1, 2 and 3 on top of the page there. And increase the height of the dividing fence acting as a barrier to the swimming pool with a height of 1.8. Part 2, relocate items as located on the non-climbable zones that will facilitate climbing. At point 3, install a barrier along the western boundary line of the swimming pool to a height of 1.8. So those 3 points will address the non-compliance.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
So Councillor Miles, is that clear to you?
I'm fine.
What's being suggested here? Councillor McLaughlin, you had a question?
I do. It's in relation to one of the post-it notes on page 21. It refers to open type timber slats or glass used gaps between vertical panels. We don't have glass on the wall.
Page 21?
The middle.
The actual door entry point.
This is it here.
Okay,
We wouldn't accept glass
no, we
on the
wouldn't accept
waterfront.
glass, no.
So we can't have that.
At least in reference to glass.
And particularly 1.8 metres of glass on the waterfront.
What we
Could I
can,
suggest this matter should be deferred
Be
until the
deferred,
next ordinary
yes,
meeting
yes.
until the conditions are clarified?
I would like to
Happy.
move
Happy.
Councillor Miles? Councillor Williams, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just, before we put this off to another meeting, I'd just like to ask a question in relation to page 14. where, and it comes back to this liability issue, we talk about requirements in relation to a body of water and depth of water at any time. Then the reporting officer goes on to say, unfortunately for the swimming pool, the permanent body of water does not maintain a depth of 300 millimetres at any time due to the tidal currents of the Lane Cove River. Therefore, the requirement of the swimming pool is fully surrounded by a child-proof barrier. So, having said that, how do we then go on and approve exemption? Doesn't that negate the opportunity to have an exemption? To me, really, Mr.
Yep, please. I'm going to add to the report next meeting.
All right. We'll cover that matter in the pipe.
Add something as well.
Councillor Collins?
Yeah, there's nothing in here that I can see that explains that it is equally as safe as if it was complying with the Act. And I'd like to see the retaining wall at the front, whether or not that is, whether it's impractical or unreasonable. It's just because they don't want to put it there for aesthetic reasons does not convince me that it's okay. I want to know that it's as safe or safer than if they had a fence around in accordance with the Act. And I would also like to point out that the risk assessment on this, I think there's a few more risks than no direct or indirect risk. And I would like these risk reports to actually have the risks there.
Okay, Mr. Cripps, make a note about that. You happy with the note?
Yes.
Councillor Miles, back to you.
I'm happy for deferral.
Defer the matter. Councillor Collins, you happy to defer the matter?
Yes.
So if there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Good decision. Item 4.2, delegated authority. Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor McLaughlin, and we have some questions from Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor McLaughlin.
My first one just relates to DA 2017-1154 at the top of page 25. Just refresh my memory through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Krupis. That is the one next to the heritage item in the Bear Street?
That's correct, the one that came to CAP.
All right, thank
We
you.
went to the
That
site
came to CAP,
inspection.
yep, thank you. My second one relates to page 26, DA 217, excuse me, 1135, 8 Crown Street, Henley. Oh, sorry, no, not that one. My mistake.
I can talk to that one if you want.
No, page 27, 2016 11291, 24 William Street.
Section 96.
Section 96. This came to council and we approved in part the dwelling, but we deleted the swimming pool, but it's now come back.
I think the council approved the two-storey dwelling house, deleted landscaping works, pool, associated retaining and boat shed.
Yep.
This section 96 is modified to delete the conditions with regard to the swimming pool and boat shed, and we only approved the landscaping work.
Okay, so
And
that's
they
not to
amended-
bring
they-
the swimming pool back into the approval.
They've fine-tuned
Okay.
the swimming pool, there's no boat shed and appropriate landscape.
There is a swimming pool.
So there is a swimming pool.
Smaller type swimming,
Okay, so
no
that's
boat shed,
right. So no glass.
no glass. And lower to the ground, all the issues raised by council. No objection.
Well, it is, but we had refused it. So
It's a totally different proposal to the refusal.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to the planning officer. Page 26, 2017-1191, the 8 Hillcrest Avenue. Is this the premises that there were some resident concerns about whether it had been approved or not.
Yes, that's the one that we stopped in the legal works, did internal legal works and notice, we stopped work, and I lodged a building certificate for part of the works and the remaining works of the fencing and exterior works were part of this DA approval. The rest were done through a building certificate and rectification work.
Right, so even though they've done the work without permission, they're now able to
Not all.
retrospective improvement.
No. Some of the works were rectified and weren't done. Some of the works were approved through the DA process, and that can't be respective approvals. And some of the other works were done through the building certificate, see if they're safe and healthy through the building certificate process.
Right, so council's now satisfied that it's all been done.
Yes.
I'd also like to make a comment. I do appreciate the detail in this report. I think this goes a long way to helping me understand the rationale behind the decision to either approve or refuse. So I do appreciate this additional information.
Thank you. So we've got to move in a second. Are there any further questions, clarifications? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. To 4.3, Development Control Unit Report. Move Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Miles.
One clarification, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Creepus, Councillor Creepus. Is this how we'll be dealing with DCU from now on? I assume that this is the method by which we keep an eye on things? Yes? Okay.
That's the plan. So far,
first report.
this was the first one.
Yeah, okay.
And we've done one
So there's two through you, Mayor. There's two meetings. One is the 11th of April, which is on page 3, and the other one, which is on page 29. There was another meeting, another application. Oh, sorry, one application on the 21st of March, and two applications, one application on the...
So these are outlining pre-DA meetings, or these are outlining DAs as
These are just
a
the
whole?
DAs that were dealt with by the DA that normally would have come to council.
To council, yep.
And are dealt with by the DC.
The General Manager is the Chair.
And I'm the Chair.
Councillor Williams.
Just a minor point on page 31, point 2, landscaping tree management. I know, just a minor thing, but it helps.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the
Fixed when they consider it.
thanks for your any further questions, clarifications? Report the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. 4.4, legal matters. Moved Councillor McLaughlin, seconded Councillor Collins. Are there any questions on the legal matters? Any clarifications? Councillor Williams.
I assume 8.7 on the last page, second last item, is that relates to the Peter Chanel site, does it?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, I just couldn't work out exactly where that was. Thank you.
Can I just ask about 6 Mary Street? I noticed it wrong here. It was served with to remove the tree. They were served with a notice to remove a dead tree.
Yes, the notice was issued. I'll just check it up for you.
The tree's still there.
Yeah.
We might have a building.
All right, Councillor Williams.
Another point of clarification, Mr. Mayor. It relates to page 4, the last item, former Radium Hill company site. This issue is still quite protracted in the community. There's negotiations and discussions going on at various levels. If you could just refresh my memory as to what council had decided to do in support of the, or is there an opportunity to get a further update on what council's position is in relation, particularly here we're talking about legal issues, but we were following the public meetings and subsequent community meetings, willing to provide support to in regard to this matter. I was just wondering whether that's ongoing and maybe if we could have some details as to what's happening.
Happy to provide a report for the next meeting. We certainly are supporting the community. The letters that are mentioned in here have been sent. I understand, and I sent you a copy of, I might have got your emails today yet, but if you haven't looked, I forwarded you a copy of an email of a meeting that was held last week between the residents and Property New South Wales. Minister's office, we weren't informed of the meeting. That is quite interesting if that's what's being proposed, but there are certainly things in that email that are of concern, should be of a concern to council. And I understand there's another meeting of residents this Thursday. I will get some further information there, and then I'll be able to bring a report back to you. I think it's worth noting that in the email that was provided to you, don't quote me on the words exactly, but I think it was suggested somewhere in there that New South Wales felt that council's approval for an alternate proposal was required. We'll seek some advice on that. Certainly what's being proposed by Property New South Wales may or may not be a good proposal, but it's not in line with the current remediation plan. So a new remediation plan. How long's it? Soon got to be by the minister. I think there's a few hairs actually on suggested. So, but we need some more information because we're out of the loop on that one.
Councillor Williams.
I agree with the General Manager, Mr Mayor. I think we need to get up to speed with what's going on there at the moment. I'm advised that we've now moved away from carton disposal to encapsulation on site. To me and to many residents that contacted me about not rumours, but the discussions, negotiations that are going on with the Minister and the Department at the moment raise severe concerns in my mind that we're going to end up with a lose-lose out of this. The residents are going to get no relief if the material is put into a concrete chamber on the site. I think we need to know exactly what the intent of the government is in relation to this, because there is a workable plan on the table at the moment, and that should be enacted and completed post haste. The funding's there, the plan is there, it's all legal. To get on with it, to go back, to take away, pull the rug from underneath the community and have a situation where, as I understand it, to retain material on site in a concrete bunker, it certainly goes nowhere near to resolving issues for any of the residents.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe there's a place to take that waste too, Councillor.
Yes, Mr Mayor, there's a legal repository for that waste and government should act on that post.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. So, do we have a mover and a seconder for this?
We do.
And are there any further questions? I'll put the motion. That's carried. Thank you. Inclusive playground 5.1.
I'll move.
So inclusive playground 5.1. Moved Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Miles.
I felt a bit bad moving that, given Councillor Brassoy and Councillor Collins' involvement, and
No, we're all part of it.
and Councillor Sanderson. Sorry.
Have we jumped to that?
Yeah, we skipped 4.5. We did deal with it earlier. Excellent initiative. I'm glad this is progressing. The location that's been chosen obviously is quite appropriate and will get a lot of patronage and usage. So I have nothing. There's nothing of concern to me in this report. I think that it's wonderful that it's progressing, and I think it's great that Becco and Touched by Olivia are taking the initiative. I think the next step is probably to reach out to the Minister for a bit more dosh, which he may be able to provide. But it's good that there is obviously a pathway here, and that we've got diligent councillors working away at it.
Very good. Is there anybody like to speak against this? For this? Councillor Cresswell.
I think it's all, unless anyone has any questions, it's all self-explanatory.
Following along nicely. The reporting officer seems to think everything's in hand, and Touched by Olivia are doing as promised in the memorandum of understanding. They're handing everything to the community as per the is attached. Scheduled, there'll be consultation in the next week again. There will be an opportunity on the, is it the 20-something, for councillors to attend an afternoon tea at the park if anyone would like to attend. And the residents will be invited along to the actual site to see it and play in it as it is.
20th.
And on 20th. So it should be a nice afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor Cresswell, and thank you for bringing this to Council in the first instance. Much appreciated. It was a great initiative. So I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried. 5.3 is the Huntersville quilt show. Councillor McLaughlin moved, seconded Councillor Miles. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. 7.1, I think we're at to next, is the yellow line.
I just love the name of this.
Moved.
I don't want to move the motion. I think if we're going to progress it, I think it's like that other item I raised an issue. If we're going to implement this, it needs to be properly. So I don't necessarily agree with the motion, but I've got alternative wording, which I think would be better, which would be a far better strategy in terms of removing.
Could you share that with everyone?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Throw it if you don't mind. Thanks. Right, Councillor, just give us a moment to read through it, please.
Well, I suppose it should be read onto the recording. Should I do that?
I'm happy for you to do that. Just give us one moment just to quickly read through it if you don't mind. Councillor Sanders, would you like to read that? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, could I just point out before I do, I don't necessarily agree that we should put yellow lines everywhere, but this is what's been proposed. I look at the motion, properly drafted, so it's comprehensive. I've used it in the term in suitable locations because I think there may need to be some discretion as to where these go. But the motion as amended becomes one, that Council commence the installation of curbside yellow road markings in suitable locations to ultimately replace no stopping signs. The Council conduct a community education program informing residents of this initiative and related road rules. 3, the Council concurrently gather information about other redundant or erroneous signage, including by asking residents to report such signage. 4, that following the above measures, Council commence A, the removal of no stopping signs where curbside yellow line markings have been already been installed. B, the removal of signage that is determined to be redundant. And C, the rectification of erroneous signage such as parking and bus zone signs where the restrictions on adjacent do not match.
I'll second.
Seconded, Councillor Miles.
Can I ask a question
Question?
in
Councillor
relation
McLaughlin.
to the amended recommendation? Through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Sanderson. What do you mean by insuitable location?
Well, that I believe is something we need to clarify. I'm sure people would have issues, and this is why I said I didn't necessarily support the motion. I'm just making sure a sensible motion comes before council rather than one that was in the report. That's something that I think there needs to be some discretion on. So
Why?
I guess, well, I don't know whether it would be appropriate to put yellow lines on sandstone gutter where they still exist. Whether it be appropriate out in some locations. It will stick out a bit. As I said, I don't necessarily support the motion. I just wanted to have it put in a decent fashion. So I don't know what the process might be. Whether Works and Services put a list of places where they propose to put lines to council, and that we sign off on those before they're installed, because they might be in some locations which might be, I feel, inappropriate.
All right, thank you.
I do have one. I think in point 3, I think there should be a comma after erroneous.
Yeah.
I'll accept that.
Right. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I share Councillor McLaughlin's question about suitable locations. I think Councillor Sanderson mentioned some aspects of that. We don't want sandstone guttering and curb being sprayed. I would support this for main roads. I don't think residents want their streets with bright yellow lines in sections down the street. It's not going to be the whole street, it'll just be little sections, and I think it'll look much more intrusive. No stopping sign just tends to sit there out of the gaze of, to me, just having yellow lines all over the place in sort of, because no stopping signs are near corners and whatever, it means we're going to have every corner in Hunters Hill with a yellow line on both sides marking out the no stopping zones. I think it's an overkill. The signs do their job in residential areas, maybe on main roads. It gives a continuum of the theme, but I just can't see it being reasonable in residential streets. I wouldn't want my curb painted yellow, and I don't think many residents will warm to that. It will be quite confronting when you're driving around narrow streets. No stopping signs quite adequately do that.
But could I just clarify, Councillor Williams, your question is to Councillor Sanderson that perhaps there could be a slight amendment made to this?
No, I'm not suggesting an amendment. I'm just sort of suggesting, I'm saying that I agree with Councillor McLaughlin that the word suitable is not well defined, needs to be defined. I also raised the issue that I think it's an overkill residential areas for the reasons I've explained.
And your suggestion was that perhaps these should apply only to main roads?
Yes,
the yellow mark.
Yes, Mr.
Councillor Sanderson?
Well, I wonder whether there's an alternative to delete the first two items and 4A. Makes it a completely different motion, but it creates other initiatives to improve the situation that we have with redundant signage.
So
if someone wished to move that amendment,
so it would be only item 3 and 4B and C. Is that correct?
Yep.
Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor,
No,
the seconder doesn't agree.
Just let me have a look. I'm not sure that I understand it. I'm a bit slow. Just so I understand it.
Concurrently would have to be
Yes.
from 3 as well.
So, Councillor Sanderson, would you like to read out what it is you'd like to see there? What you're suggesting, rather?
Well, an alternative would be that 3 would become 1. The count.
Sorry.
3 would become 1. The council gather information about redundant or erroneous signs, including by asking residents to report such signage. 4 would become 2. Following the above measures, council commence. B would become A, the removal of other signage that is, or the removal of signage that is determined to be redundant. And C would become B, the rectification of erroneous signage such as parking and bus zone signs where restrictions on adjacent signs do not match.
Councillor Miles, you don't accept that, okay? Yeah, General Manager.
I think we're making policy on the run here, and I'm extremely concerned. I don't think anyone really knows what we're trying to do here. I think I understand Councillor Sanderson's intent, and that was we already identified that we have lots of signage perhaps that we don't need. Yeah. So why don't we do it at the same time? I think it's actually a separate. That issue is actually a separate issue, and that's confusing. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I think it's confusing the two. And I certainly agree with, well, are we going to run around and put a yellow line down every street? And I'm not sure that that's what we want to do either. I didn't read it. I've read that a completely different way because, for instance, where there's a stop sign now, there's supposed to be a white line across the road. Right, so that's stop signs as opposed to no stopping. I can see where in Hunters Hill, I would have thought that most of our no stopping zones are on main roads. I don't think we necessarily have, we might have some no stopping zones near schools or preschools or something like that, and that probably would actually help, I think. So I just think we're sort of getting mixed and mashed here. So I'm thinking that much as I don't like deferring, yeah, I think I'd prefer to see this deferred to provide further information or clarification on the likely location of the no stopping lines. And then secondly, because I don't want to lose the erroneous signage because I think it's a really good, I know the Mayor loves signs. Clarification of location of the yellow, no, and a process for identifying redundant or erroneous signage.
So, Councillor Sanderson, would you be happy to defer the matter?
I'd be very happy to defer to get it right.
Councillor Miles?
Yep.
Question, Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, does the community need to have a say in this? Is there room to consult with people? If I understand main roads, I understand schools, When we get into residential streets, is there a community consultation whether people would prefer a sign or whether
General Manager?
It's a very good point. I'm thinking perhaps what we ought to do is point number 2, which was that council conducting community education for residents initiative and related road rules. Once we've identified where we think they're all going to go, then we just put a general thing out there and say this is where what the proposal is, this is the streets, yada, yada, yada. If they're in any particular streets, we'd write to those residents and say this is what we're proposing, if you've got any objections, yada, yada, yada. I agree. If we just run around starting putting yellow lines all over the place, people are going to know, what's this mean? Which defeats the whole purpose of why we want to do it.
And they get an option.
Yeah.
As long as
All
they have
right,
an
so
option.
we've still got a bit of way to go. Councillor Williams?
in relation to that, this is a cost to council, no doubt. We're getting
I think we
support from state government who appear to have initiated this issue. Yet again, cost shifting processes that we've got to now pay for.
Well, what we're suggesting in the report is that the cost of painting yellow lines is expected to be less than what it costs us to replace all the damaged and replacement signs that we do. So, but no, we're not getting any money for it. This is just a straight out initiative that some councils have identified as part of their road safety programs.
And in the past, I've seen some of the costs for replacing a street sign and they're quite high. And we have a lot of them every week. So it may be a saving. So, Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Miles, no further discussion. I'll put the motion that we defer this with the suggestions that we gather additional information. That's carried. Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. 8.1, summary of council investments. Councillor Collins, Councillor Miles. Any questions? Councillor Miles. Excuse me, Councillor Collins.
Actually, well, no, I'd like to speak to, questions and speak to the motion. Look, this is not really any different to any report that we're getting, I think, every quarter. We've got a lot of money in the bank, and we've got all these term deposits running at different terms. Now, we can always get a higher interest rate if we lock it in for a longer amount of time. And if we're not planning on doing anything with this $20 million in the near term, then perhaps we should consider locking in these term deposits for a bit longer to get a better rate. But with that, what I would like to see is actually an expert to come in and actually analyse what we're doing and make sure we're not putting aside. For instance, we've got the 24-hour call, $624,000, which is a rate that's half what you'd get for a 3-month. Now, if we've had that 24-hour call for a year, that would be, that's $5,000. So if we're not dipping into that, I'd like to see whether or not we can, put this money better to work within the same investment strategy of term deposits, which is safe, but probably do it a bit better, if possible.
All right, so your suggestion is we have somebody have a look at it and give us some advice. Is that correct? So can I defer that to the General Manager?
Yes.
General Manager?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Some of the money is restricted on what we can do with it, but we can still put it into higher interest.
And we can put it into longer terms, right?
Yes, we
We've
can.
got nothing more than 90 days.
Yes,
I think
we can.
we're leaving a lot on the table with that.
Yes. Would you like to add that to this?
So council will have an independent investment advisor review the portfolio and investment strategy.
Yeah, mainly in saying to go out and start, just the interest, just the right term
Well, if he
deposits.
has a look at this and says that's fine, that'll cover it.
Not spending a whole bunch of money on it.
Yeah.
But just seeing what we could. We're not leaving any money on the table.
Councillor Miles, you happy with that? Councillor Williams.
I think that's essential as a short-term benefit to council, but it has been raised by myself and I think by Councillor Miles that we need to get on with it and find more productive use for the funds that we have available. It's not $20 million, but it's probably about $9 million that we could use to generate a revenue stream for council, which would be more than what this interest rate process. I agree that we need to consolidate and enhance our interest in the short term, but I thought we'd passed a motion at some stage in the past.
You have,
that
and you will.
requested that we find a more long-term strategy for these funds.
Yep.
Is that progress?
Yes, it is. You'll have a report shortly.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. So if there are no further queries or questions, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, against, carried. Thank you. 8.2, fraud and corruption prevention. Councillor Miles, Councillor Williams. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, against, carried.
Just an observation, Mr Mayor. I don't
Thank
know
you.
if it's
Please,
very quickly.
Councillor Williams.
But in the risk analysis, councillors are considered in the inherent risk as being extreme.
Councillors.
Yes, which I find a little bit offensive. On page 98, not all councillors are corrupt.
No.
There's potential for corrupt.
No.
And by the way, it goes down, the residual risk is low by only acting a couple of steps. I just would have thought that we're a little bit more honest and brave in that risk assessment. Just a thought.
Thank you, comment. I think we're up to
Yep.
8.3, the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal annual report and determination of councillors' fees. Now, if you just spend a moment to have a look at this before we move the motion. Does anybody need any clarifications?
No, I'm happy to move the
Moved
motion.
Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Miles. Any questions? Anybody want to speak for the motion? Councillor Williams, against the motion? I'll put the motion.
I'll speak against it. Yeah, I just
Certainly, Councillor Collins.
yeah. Look, I just think we are the smallest council, and we really don't have to get the. We're already getting at the top of the band. I just don't think this is necessary to have a pay rise. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody would like to speak for? Against? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? That's carried. Well, thank you, Councillor Collins, for causing us to think about it. 8.4, veranda of Lisa Woolwich Pier Hotel. Councillor Williams. Move, Councillor Williams.
No.
Did you have your hand up?
I scratched my.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just well, it wasn't an option. I'm sorry, my mistake. Councillor McLaughlin, moved. Seconded. Councillor Miles. Question?
I was just wondering why we have to just agree to this, but more importantly, is the rate of $11,000 per annum, 160.75 square metres, a fair market return for that location?
Yep.
If you were to rent sort of space commercially, would that be $11,000 a year?
The fee is discounted by the fact that the hotel actually constructed all of the structure onto the footpath. So I've had a value do a valuation on it. That's the figure the valuers come back with.
I don't understand why them paying for the structure negates the value of the commercial return on that area.
Well, I can just tell you that's what it is off the top of my head. I'm happy to give you a copy.
I'd be interested in seeing, because I think that's to me, $11,000 for a highly commercial enterprise occupying 106 square metres of community land is, in my mind, pretty low.
I'll give you a copy. I thought exactly the same as you did, but I accepted the value as principal. You know him. I'll send you a copy. He used to sit on the other side of it.
All right, so are there any further discussions on this? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. I think
What if they don't?
I think Councillor Williams, you're attending that.
I'd be happy to attend that.
Thank you. Recommendations on 140. Moved. Councillor Williams. Seconded. Councillor Sanderson. Would you like to speak for? Against? Any issues?
We just need to know who. Well,
Councillor Williams.
sorry, well, it doesn't. We don't have to have names now. But the question would be: does anybody else, other than Councillor Williams, want to go? We can send more. Councillor Williams will be the delegate. We were called at the last conference in Sydney, and quite a number ended. Pretty easy to go to Sydney as opposed to going to Albury. It's just that we know there's going to be an accommodation issue. Likely that it.
Nobody else. So can you?
Okay, that's good. Perfect.
Right, thank you, Councillor Williams.
That's all right.
I put the motion. Those in favour, against, gets carried.
The next item is withdrawn because that extraordinary meeting and discussion did not occur.
That's the measure of constitution.
Scrub that.
Page 162, 8.7. Change to council meeting schedule.
Just to accommodate the change of the meeting for the Albury conference.
I'll do the clash. Councillor Miles, seconded. Councillor Williams. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Williams?
Just wondering, it's got here an extraordinary meeting on the 2nd of July. What's that in?
Yes, you might recall I mentioned at the last Monday's conference workshop that we would need to do that to do the budget.
Budget and CSP.
CSP. Okay, thank you.
Do you have a movement? Moved. Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor.
We had Miles and Williams for the meeting
We have.
yes.
Right. Those in favour? Against? Carried. 9.1, minutes of the Conservation Advisory Panel. Moved. Councillor McLaughlin, seconded. Councillor Williams. All in favour? Carried. Minutes of the Conservation Panel of 18th of April. Moved. Councillor McLaughlin, second. Councillor Williams. Any discussion? All in favour? It's carried. 9.3. Minutes of the Gladesville Main Street Committee. I believe there's an amendment for that. It's on the table. Do you all have a copy of that?
I made a question.
Just one other additional recommendation.
To add
Change to the whole thing.
No, it's just part 2.
additional part 2 to incorporate Veronia Park.
There was a suggestion by the committee that Veronia Park shops be included at the Main Street Committee. I think it might be a problem.
Mr Mayor, I move the original motion that you received and note,
The original motion.
which is receive and note.
Yep,
Receive a note. Councillor Miles, seconded. Any further discussion?
I
Williams?
just made the observation that the tabled recommendation here with Veronia Park shops being included. I don't think that's appropriate because the Main Street in Gladesville has a particular context, a particular group of businesses. If we were to establish a process for the Veronia Park shops, then maybe the precinct concept would be the better way to go. I don't think spreading the role of Gladesville shops down to a small community shopping centre like Veronia Park is appropriate. So that's why I've just moved to receive and note, and I included that as an additional point.
Makes sense. Thank you. Just which one?
Yep.
So moved. Carried. All in favour? Anybody against? Carried. All right. And 9.4. Is that correct? The minutes of the Huddersfield Art Exhibition Advisory Committee. Moved Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Minutes of the Huddersfield Art Exhibition,
I move the
April
next
17.
I move the next two Huddersfield Art meeting minutes.
Councillor Miles, Councillor McLaughlin.
There's only one.
Yep, it's only one more. That's
There's
it.
events
Oh, no.
advisory.
So that's 9.5.
Sorry, I'm getting
All
into
in favour of 9.5?
No.
9.5, all in favour? Carried. 9.6. Minutes of the Huddersfield Events Advisory.
Move.
Councillor Miles, second Councillor Williams. Is there any discussion? All in favour? It's carried. 9.7. The
Some
minutes of the
recommendations
Huddersfield
here.
Public Art Committee. Moved Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor McLaughlin. Is there any discussion?
I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has any discussion, has any in relation to the recommendation.
How many books will the library hold?
Not many, probably about 10. Depends what size they are.
Right, good. Any
That's
further
why you need a
discussion?
library monitor. You need somebody who will be
Keep an eye
overturning.
on it. Any further discussion? Put the motion, those in favour? Against? Carried. 9.8. The minutes of the Huntshill Seniors Advisory Group, 9th of April. Councillor Williams? Councillor Miles? Is there any discussion? Any comments? Put the motion, those in favour? It's carried. 9.9. The Joint Library Services Advisory Committee.
Move.
Move Councillor McLaughlin, seconded Councillor Williams. I'd just like to point you to item 4 in that, page 281. I found it interesting that there are a couple of people in there, Andrew Carnegie and Bill Gates, who talk about the importance of libraries. I thought that was quite interesting. Right, those in favour?
Can I just make
Councillor Williams.
Because I attended that meeting, I think it's important to note the expert presentation by the librarian.
Yes, very
or
good.
the person in charge of the Ryde Library. She did an excellent job in explaining a vision and a future direction which does embrace all the modern themes around libraries. So I found it a very informative and very well put together presentation.
Ms. Chilwood. Yeah. Thank you. I think we wrote and thanked her for her time as well.
Yep.
All right. Moved and seconded. Those in favour? That's carried. 9.10, the minutes of the Levesenay Friendship Committee.
With the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Miles. We're coming up for an anniversary of Levesenay. That's about to happen. It's the 30th anniversary of Levesenay. And its proposed date is the 10th of August, and I think that clashes with the quilting, and it clashes with Nesrock too, I think. So maybe Councillor Williams and I, we could have a chat about attendance at Nesrock and attendance at Levesenay outside the meeting. Maybe we could seek some, we may need some additional assistance for that meeting. We'll talk to you about that. So moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Miles. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 9.11.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sanderson.
Yes,
Move Councillor Sanderson.
no, I'm not moving the recommendation. What occurred, the meeting was held on the 10th of April. Minutes draft minutes were distributed on the 18th of April. On the 2nd of April, I went back with some fairly
Oh, that's
substantial
right.
amendments,
Yep.
which I have here.
Yep.
And two committee members came back and confirmed they agreed with the amendments that I've made. At the end of the day, as far as the recommendation goes, recommendation 5 that we need to alter does not seem to make any sense to me. The resolution that was actually put at the meeting was that council install a larger no-through road sign in a visible location on the eastern side of Mount Street, immediately to the south of the intersection with Stanley Road. You know, why the reference to Victoria Road there is in 5 in that recommendation is that I believe there was some complaint because a truck once drove down Mount Street, and his excuse was that we were trying to get over to the point. Didn't realise there wasn't a bridge there.
I think
But
they
I
said that
think
their navigation equipment sent them down there on the way to Victoria Road.
could have. Anyway, for everyone's assistance, I've printed the minutes that the committee members actually agreed to.
No, and we've distributed those. Everyone should already have those.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay.
I hadn't noticed them.
That should be on every should already be on everybody's desk.
The same as the one
The same.
And that would be then whatever you were going to distribute.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there.
Miles.
So move, councillor Sanderson.
Move that subject ordering.
No, I wasn't seconding that, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second the tabled minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to.
Councillor Miles.
Given that there is a substantial amendment here, can we defer this report so that we can digest it again? I'm just going through a lot of red here and I'm trying to digest it all, but I'm not quite sure we've had the time to do that, so I think it might be best just to defer it to the next meeting so that we can have a proper look at it.
Yeah, seconded, councillor.
Yeah, and my reasoning is not for deferment, is not for that so much, because I had a chance to read your earlier minutes that you changes to the minutes that you sent, but it's more in relation to the first recommendation where all these no stopping signs are installed in various streets. I think it might be a bit premature given we're also having discussions about yellow lines and whether we should consult with residents about whether they want no
So we
stopping
consider
signs.
this
In conjunction with the other previous motion that we've deferred as well.
Right. So back to you, councillor Sanderson.
Look, I'm perfectly happy with that. I was not all that happy with the way that was put to the meeting, but the manager of Works Services assured me that the process that they had been going through for the installation of no stopping signs in relation to garbage collection days was that they'd put the proposal, then go to the resident station. And in fact, I questioned why some of the signs that have been approved in that way by the former traffic committee hadn't occurred, and I was told that the reason that had not occurred was that when they consulted residents, the residents said they didn't want them, so they weren't installed. So it's just, there seem to be two ways of going about the problem. I personally would prefer to do it the way council is suggesting rather than the way the manager works and services has been going about it. So very happy to accept that.
So that becomes your.
So what do we want to do with it?
So that's your proposal that we defer it, councillor Sanderson?
It is.
Seconded by?
Oh, sorry, we deferred.
Yeah, but that's
William.
they agreed to
Councillor
defer.
No, just discuss it. Yeah, but what do we?
That we defer the matter.
Yeah, but what are we doing? I know we're deferring it, but to do what?
To consider the
To bring it back to the next
recommendations in
meeting.
conjunction with the other matter.
Right.
To give us time to consider the report.
Seconds.
It'll come back to the next meeting in conjunction with the other matter. Yes?
I'm just wondering if some of the recommendations in this report can be put into the other motion.
Well, that might be what happens.
Yeah, I think that's probably tidier rather than having two motions. we can incorporate, and then we can debate the merits of them.
Councillor Sanderson? You happy with that?
Yes, that's fine.
So,
Are we finished on that one?
well, we have to vote on it. So if it's moved, Councillor Sanders, seconded Councillor Williams, everybody in favour that we defer this matter? Carries. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, there is one other matter that came out of this meeting. At the present time, we only have 5 out of 6 of the potential community reps elected. On that particular night, there were apologies from 2 of the community members, and Councillor Collins wasn't present, so we almost didn't have a quorum.
Right.
That's in contrast to CAP, and I've been sitting there and not being active, but that's worked pretty well, because I mean, the only day we did council was the first meeting where either Councillor Collins or Councillor Williams could attend, and I got chucked in at the deep end, so to speak, at that meeting, but at least we had a councillor there. So I think we probably should consider looking at our appointments to committees and trying to fill any vacancies, and perhaps also formalise some that have come about in an unusual way, because I think when we set up the Public Transport and Traffic Committee, I mean, the normal convention had been that the Mayor would be the chair of that committee, because he would also be a member of the local traffic committee, the
real traffic committee.
Yeah, the traffic committee that was set up by legislation rather than by council. So I don't suggest we do it tonight, but I wonder whether we put an item on the agenda for next week, where so I mean, as far as the public transport and traffic committee is concerned, as minuted from the meeting back in November last year, it records yourself as the chair, and I sort of,
That was on your suggestion. It was,
yeah.
but I didn't accept it. It was on your suggestion.
Yeah,
we recorded it. And I
but
said
at the
I
end of the day,
consent.
but that's been on in the minutes. I think we need to clarify that.
I can clarify it for you now. You suggested it. It made it into the minutes, but I didn't accept them.
Okay, but then we've now got a minute that's inconsistent with working. So I think we need to try to fill some of the gaps.
Well, is this a matter arising? Because we're considering the minutes. Yeah, wait, hang on. We're considering the minutes of the meeting, right? So we've dealt with that, right? So now could I suggest, respectfully, it's a matter arising.
It is a matter arising.
Okay, so what actually is the matter? So that is it that you want the membership of the committee reviewed? What is it you're actually asking
I
for?
would like to see if we can fill the vacancy for one community member, and can we clarify who the second member of that committee is? And if
well, I think it was Councillor Collins, but I think
well,
Councillor Collins.
It's not minuted, so I mean,
Councillor
I think we should
Collins.
clarify that.
Councillor Collins was overseas when the meeting was on, and that's why Councillor Collins wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. Well, can we clarify that in the?
But I think
You might
no,
need
we
to
can't
move
go back and revisit the minutes of that particular.
Oh, sorry.
meeting.
Can we appoint the both?
So I think in respect of the vacancy, and normally it's the appointments are by ward, so they've got, we're missing we've got two, you're missing a south, you're missing a south. But if Ben's there, you've got your 2 south, so it's 2 south, that's it.
No, we only have 5 community reps.
No, community reps.
We should have 3 from.
Oh, sorry, 3 from
ward.
each. So you're missing.
We only have 2 South Ward
Yeah.
reps.
Yep, you're missing a South Ward rep,
Yep.
right? Because there's no one nominated.
Yep. And the other thing about that is could we move the motion?
You just go and find somebody.
No, but I'm sorry. Okay.
Right, so we need someone. If we can appoint, council is quite at liberty to appoint an additional South Ward member. We just need someone to nominate.
Okay, fine.
That's fine. And
Might I suggest that you could do all of those amendments within your committee?
Which
Next meeting.
your next
Well,
meeting.
you
You
know,
just note
record-
that Councillor Collins is
That's
now
right,
the
yeah.
councillor. Do that in your next minute. I don't think you can do it here.
I thought they were appointed by council itself.
Yes, sir.
So,
We've dealt with that matter. Thanks for raising the issues.
Out of council.
We can clarify. 9.12, report to council's briefings workshop held on the 9th of April.
No, I wasn't.
Councillor Collins,
I wasn't there, so I probably shouldn't.
I'll move it.
McLaughlin.
Councillor McLaughlin, seconded. Councillor Crassoy, all in favour? Against?
My name recorded in opposition, Mr Mayor. I don't think this comes anywhere near the vital information necessary to understand the outcome of the meeting.
Yeah, should I be recorded as being posted as well?
We have Councillor Williams and Councillor Sanderson would like to be in opposition, not against what's in there, but the extent of the information provided. Is that
I
the-
just don't think it's an adequate report.
So the extent of the information provided. Right. Thank you. 9.13, report on councillor's workshop.
Move it.
Councillor Miles, Councillor McLaughlin. Any questions? Councillor Williams?
Oh, just again, I don't think it's anywhere near explaining what the workshop was about. It's a liner. Sorry. The reporting is totally inadequate.
Any further discussion on the matter? Councillor Sanderson, did you want to?
I'll vote against it. If it's recorded that I did vote against.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried.
Hand went up there, Chairman, to accounts.
10.1 is a correspondence to Sydney Airport Master Plan.
Move.
Move Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Collins. Any discussion? Put the motion. Those in favour? Against? It's carried.
11.1.
Draft minutes of the Civic Risk Board meeting, 11.1. Move Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Miles. I'll just draw your attention to a couple of things in there without going through the whole thing. I'm sure it's pretty straightforward, although brief. That the board is investigating the purchase or lease and funding for the options of a property with the cost to be shared between Civic Risk Metro and Civic Risk West, and that the further report be submitted to the board for consideration. They're looking to purchase a property out west where they've got some certainty of tenure in the location. And there's an issue of a claim that they're trying to make a settlement on, which is item 8 on page 264. There's some areas blacked out in there, but
I believe it's not appropriate
it's
to
in the report.
name the parties.
It's in the report. Yep. So, any further discussion? Any questions? I must say the Civic Risk Metro board meetings give me a lot of confidence that the insurance aspects of council are being very well managed by some very dedicated people, and I think it'll get only stronger as it develops over the next 12 months from what we're hearing at those meetings. So I'll put that. Those in favour? Against? Gets carried.
I can advise that we have 2 new member councils. Go City Council, Orange City Council, both joined.
Good. Councillor Williams.
Mr Mayor, with your indulgence, delegates' reports. I attended the NESROC meeting the other night along with Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you.
And gave your apologies
Thank you.
as appropriate. But I believe there were two presentations given by State Department representatives, which are very important for the council to be aware of. The first was about social grants, and the more important one was about the problems that local government or Australia in general is facing with the recycling program. I understand that both those presentations are now available and have been circulated. I would encourage the General Manager, if he can, to circulate.
Happy to flick those around. Yep.
What was the first one again? I'm sorry, you did mention to me the other evening. What was the first one again?
The social infrastructure grants. The government's running a program to try and boost local infrastructure for social coherence. And that closes in June. I think councillors, and it doesn't have to be shovel ready, it can be just an idea. So I think as a council we should see if there's any opportunity to gain some grant money there. But the most important issue is about the recycling difficulties Australia is facing, recycling program, and the risks that are posed to us as councils, particularly in terms of maintaining confidence, credibility with our community. So I would encourage councillors to have a look at that presentation.
Thanks for the report. So we have item 12.1. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Miles.
Just one item on that.
Councillor Sanderson.
One of the matters that's reported in the minutes of the Public Transport and Traffic Committee is that one member asked at the time of the 5:30, the Manager of Works and Services was asked to get a consensus. I don't think anyone was contacted. It's just been changed to 5:30 from the normal time of 6. I think the majority of members prefer that to 6. If we get the Manager of Works and Services to actually do that, the survey that he, survey members of the committee to see what time better suits, act on that rather than just being changed without consultation.
It was discussed at the meeting.
Well, there was a minute, or part of the minute in the meeting, if I can find it, was that the in the early part for some reason.
One of the members requested.
Yeah. Yep, there it is on page 3. So I've got it.
And wishes us to contact members to obtain consensus.
Right, so Mr. Steppen.
So we will just leave it at 6 o'clock for the moment.
All right, what's on? Is in there? Do we have an extra matter? Do we have another matter? We do have another, right? It's confidential item.
Oh yeah, we're closed session.
Moving to the committee of the whole.
Councillor Miles, Councillor Williams.
Turning off the.
Yeah, lower the cone of silence.
Right. Mine actually starting.
So we come back to our meeting after the matters we've just considered. Is there any further business that we need to deal with tonight? Are there any questions without notice? Okay, all right, I'm sorry. Councillor, just one moment. Just one moment. Just a quick summary of what happened in Committee of the Whole.
During closed session, the council considered two matters. Two resolutions were passed. The councillors present were Councillors Bennett, Williams, Collins, Crassoy, McLaughlin, Miles and Sanderson. The meeting resumed again at 10:35. Recommendations to council were in relation to the first item, which is a tender for bus shelters. The council rejected two conforming offers submitted by Ad Shelter Proprietary Limited. The council delegated the general manager's authority to enter into a negotiation and finalise the commercial terms with Ad Shelter Street Furniture based on the alternative offer for the bus shelter design, construct, maintain and advertising rights. Approve amendments to the contract documents that are not of material nature. Subject to contracts being executed, council advises all responsible. With respect to the second matter, which was foot paving in Gladesville, tender for foot paving in Gladesville, the matter be deferred for further information and considered in the next ordinary meeting.
Thank you, General Manager. Any further comments on those matters which are...
adopt those recommendations.
I'll move those.
Move. Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Williams. All in favour? Carried. So we're left with any further business, and if not, questions without notice. Meeting closed at 10:37. Thank you.